Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. I'd like to request Brother Amen and Jabbar to please come over here and recite the Qissa. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat.
Amen, I found it here.
إمام زمانة بواد بلند صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
رسالة الصلوات على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. عن جابر بن عبد الله الأنصاري عن فاطمة الزهراء عليها السلام بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم قال: سمعت فاطمة أنها قالت: دخل علي أبي رسول الله في بعض الأيام فقال: السلام عليك يا فاطمة. فقلت: عليك السلام. قال: إني أجد في بدني ضعفا. فقلت له: أعيذك بالله يا أبتاه من الضعف. فقال: يا فاطمة، ائتني بالكساء اليماني فغطيني به. فأتيته بالكساء اليماني فغطيته بالكساء اليماني وصرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلألأ كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله. فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسن عليه السلام أقبل وقال: السلام عليك يا أمه. فقلت: وعليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي. فقال: يا أمه، إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. فقلت: نعم، إن جدك تحت الكساء. فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء وقال: السلام عليك يا جدة يا رسول الله. أتأذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء؟ فقال: وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوضي، قد أذنت لك. فدخلا معه تحت الكساء. فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسين قد أقبل وقال: السلام عليك يا أمه. فقلت: وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي. فقال لي: يا أمه، إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. فقلت نعم، إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء. فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه، السلام عليك يا من اختاره الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكما تحت الكساء؟ فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافع أمتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخلا معهما تحت الكساء. فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله. فقلت وعليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين. فقال يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن عمي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. فقلت نعم، ها هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء. فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال له وعليك السلام يا أخي ويا وصيي وخليفتي وصاحب لوائي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل علي تحت الكساء ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بضعتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخلت تحت الكساء. فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ أبي رسول الله بطرف الكساء وأومى بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وحمتي، لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي، يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم. أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن عاداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم، فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورضوانك علي وعليهم، وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. فقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان سماواتي، إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئة ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال الأمين جبرائيل يا ربي ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. فقال جبرائيل يا رب أتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض لأكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله. العلي الأعلى يقرئك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضية ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم. وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله وعليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله فإنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء فقال لأبي إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. فقال علي لأبي يا رسول الله أخبرني بما لجلوسنا ما لي جلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي عليه السلام إذن والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال أبي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا وفيهم مهموم إلا وفرج الله همه ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غمه ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجته. فقال علي عليه السلام إذن والله فزنا وسعدنا وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة. وصل اللهم على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين.
और मोहम्मद आले मोहम्मद सलावत ہمارے دیگر بآواز بلند تر صلوات. برائے خوشنودی امام زمانہ بلند تر صلوات. اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد.
بارے باواز بلند ہدیہ صلوات.
اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد.
آئے سادات نے اس دیر میں کیا کیا دیکھا. آئے سادات نے اس دیر میں کیا کیا دیکھا. اپنی آنکھوں کو سدا خون نہیں روتا دیکھا. آئے سادات نے اس دیر میں کیا کیا دیکھا. جس گھرانے نے سدا لوگوں کو خوشیاں بانٹی. جس گھرانے نے سدا لوگوں کو خوشیاں بانٹی. ان کو خوشیاں نہ ملی غم ہی زیادہ دیکھا. ان کو خوشیاں نہ ملی غم ہی زیادہ دیکھا. وہ محمد کے جو رحمت ہے زمانے کے لیے. وہ محمد کے جو رحمت ہے زمانے کے لیے. ان کی نالین کو بھی خون میں ڈوبا دیکھا. ان کی نالین کو بھی خون میں ڈوبا دیکھا. آئے سادات نے اس دیر میں کیا کیا دیکھا. کہ سبز گنبد کے قریب مرکز زہرا ہے مگر. سبز گنبد کے قریب مرکز زہرا ہے مگر. باپ نے بیٹی کی تربت پہ نہ سایہ دیکھا. باپ نے بیٹی کی تربت پہ نہ سایہ دیکھا. آئے سادات نے اس دہر میں کیا کیا دیکھا. کہ روٹیاں مانگ کے جس در سے فرشتے جائیں. روٹیاں مانگ کے جس در سے فرشتے جائیں، عید کے روز بھی ان بچوں کا فاقہ دیکھا، عید کے روز بھی ان بچوں کا فاقہ دیکھا، اور پشت پہ جس کو بٹھاتے تھے رسول اکرم، پشت پہ جس کو بٹھاتے تھے رسول اکرم، اس نواسے ہی کا سر بر سر نیزہ دیکھا، اس نواسے ہی کا سر بر سر نیزہ دیکھا، کہ جس کے بازو تھے رضا زینب کبریٰ کے لیے، کہ جس کے بازو تھے رضا زینب کبریٰ کے لیے، کیسے بی بی نے اسے بازو بریدہ دیکھا، کیسے بی بی نے اسے بازو بریدہ دیکھا، صبح عاشور ڈھلی شام غریباں آئی، صبح عاشور ڈھلی شام غریباں آئی، چار پہروں میں قیامت کو گزرتے دیکھا، چار پہروں میں قیامت کو گزرتے دیکھا، آئے سادات نے اس دہر میں کیا کیا دیکھا، اور گر گئی خاک پہ غش کھا کے علی کی بیٹی، گر گئی خاک پہ غش کھا کے علی کی بیٹی، پوچھا صغرا نے کہ پردیس میں کیا کیا دیکھا، پوچھا صغرا نے کہ پردیس میں کیا کیا دیکھا، رو دیے سرور ریحان جگر تھام کے ہم، رو دیے سرور ریحان جگر تھام کے ہم، جب عزا خانے میں رکھا ہوا جھولا دیکھا، جب عزا خانے میں رکھا ہوا جھولا دیکھا، دیکھا آئے سادات نے اس دیر میں کیا کیا دیکھا اپنی آنکھوں کو صدا خون نہیں روتا دیکھا
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. جزاك الله.
اور دیگر بواز بلند تیز سلام.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
برائے خوشنودی امام زمانہ بلند تر صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
فاتحہ. پر محمد وآل محمد صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
حسرتا کے شاہ کا ماتم ہوا تمام واہ حسرتا کے شاہ کا ماتم ہوا تمام آئی خزاں بہار موسم ہوا تمام جس کی خوشی دلوں کو تھی وہ غم ہوا تمام سر پیٹو مومنوں کے محرم ہوا تمام آئی اگر اجل تو یہ ماتم یہ غم کہاں یہ مجلس تو حشر تلک ہے پر ہم کہاں یہ مجلس تو حشر تلک ہے پر ہم کہاں اے بے دیارو بے سرو سامان الوداع اے شیعان پاک کے مہمان الوداع اے دو جہاں کے سید و سلطان الوداع اے بنت مصطفیٰ کے دل و جان الوداع آہو بکا سے ہم کبھی غافل نہ ہوئیں گے جب تک جئیں گے آپ کی غربت پہ روئیں گے جب تک جئیں گے آپ کی غربت پہ روئیں گے واہ حسرتا کے شاہ کا پر محمد وآل محمد صلوات.
और दीगर बहुत बुलंद तर सलावत
काबिल इसके कि मैं जरी हैदर जैदी को आखिरी मजलिस खिताबत की दावत दूं। इनके वालिद मोहतरम यहाँ मौजूद हैं, जवाद भाई, और डेफिनेटली इनके वालिद भाई मौजूद हैं नीचे रुबिया बाजी। इनकी तरबियत है कि इस माहौल में, इन ममालिक में और इस पुराशो माहौल में कि जहाँ पे बुराइयां कदम कदम पे हैं, ऐसी औलाद को परवान चढ़ाना। आप दोनों जो है बहुत ही लायक तहसीन है। परवरदिगार हम सब वालिदैन को ऐसी औलादें परवान चढ़ाने की तौफीक अता फरमाए। मैं दरख्वास्त करूंगा जरिए हैदर जदी से कि वो मेंबर पर तशरीफ लाएं और मजलिस से खिताबत फरमाएं। और मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सलावत
अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मुहम्मद व आले मुहम्मद व नारे तकबीर,
अल्लाहु अकबर,
नारे रिसालत,
या रसूलल्लाह,
नारे हैदरी और मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद
Please remember the martyrs that were being brutally martyred today in Afghanistan. Please remember them in your Fatiha too. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين الغر الميامين، ولعنة الدائمة الباقية على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المبين: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، وأقيموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة وأطيعوا الرسول لعلكم ترحمون. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. There are a few people that have requested for du'as. Please include Brother Sayyid Ali Raza Ridvi and some other people, Hussein Roda, Ishraq Khatun, and other people that ask them with complete recovery and quick recovery, inshallah. Recite salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So our discussion was going about the topic regarding the sirat, or regarding the history of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the majlis before that, we discussed about some issues that were pertinent regarding the way the history of Prophet was being assembled. We came to different conclusions, so just to give you a quick reminder, we went through some of the points and we said that as soon as Prophet went away, the people that came after them, the government that were in charge of the whole Islamic system, they didn't allow the people to quote and relate the hadith of Prophet. Rather, the people were being imprisoned and people were being tortured if they would have done so. And afterwards, when people were actually allowed to, at that moment too, people have their own interests that were lying beside them that they wanted to preserve and when they wanted to save their face, do this thing that they won't allow any point discuss the fadila of Ahlul Bayt, or that would put the people that were against Ahlul Bayt into bad light. So this is where we were at that point. Now you have to remember, at the time of Prophet, there were different companions that were responsible for different things, right? So we have companion known who? Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud was a reciter of the Holy Quran. And some of the people also deem him a faqih. Faqih is someone who has good knowledge about the halal and the haram of the fiqh and of the Islam. And then likewise, we have another companion, Abdullah ibn Abbas. Abdullah ibn Abbas was really good when it comes to the tafsir, the exegesis, the commentary of the Holy Quran. Likewise, we have different people that were responsible for different things, but most of the companions, they were not involved in any kind of knowledge. Why? Because they were just like a normal human beings, like we are. How many of us, we actually take notes when we are going through a lecture or when we are going through the majalises, right? Very few of us, right? So imagine at that time, there were only few companions that were responsible or that took the decision into their hands, and they used to record the history of the Prophet. So naturally, when Prophet passed away, there were only selected people that actually had the records of what Prophet used to do. So one of that personality was who? Abu Rafi'. Brother and sister, remember this name, Abu Rafi'. Abu Rafi' was who? He was one of the slave of the Prophet that Prophet freed him during his lifetime. But he remained with the Prophet till the end of his life. What happened was, this Abu Rafi' was also a follower of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Are you guys with me? So he used to follow Amir al-Mu'mineen. He was not among those people that follow the people that were against Amir al-Mu'mineen. This personality and his son, they penned few books. In those moments when writing about Prophet or when quoting about Prophet was a huge crime, in those moments too, these two people, father and the son, they wrote about the history of the Prophet. Why? Because they were the follower of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wassalam. So we need to remember one thing, and this is a huge lesson for all of us. What is that lesson? That whenever you are being given knowledge, there is a hadith that says, قَيَّدُ الْعِلْمِ بِالْكِتَابَ. That when you are going through the knowledge, just don't listen to it, because there might be a time that you might forget it again, right? Try to record that by writing it down. MashaAllah, nowadays we have Majalis is going on YouTube, so it is still possible for you all to go back and go through it. But I would say it's always a good habit, because you might go to some of the Majalises that are not on the internet, right? For those moments, right, if you have a notebook with you, so you can probably write some notes. Or even if you don't have the notebooks, we have our devices that we can use, and we can probably record some important points that are good for us for our future references, right? So in those moments, the Shia of Amir al-Mu'mineen, in spite of whatever was going through at that time, they kept recording, and they kept a record of the history of the Prophet. Likewise, another personality came in, and this is where I would take a few minutes. That personality was what? Sulaym ibn Qais al-Hilabi. Some people say him Sulaym ibn Qais al-Amiri. He was one of the companion of Amir al-Mu'mineen, and he wrote a book that's called Kitabus Saqifa. Right? Even now, his name is so famous that when the book is published, the book is called what? Kitab Sulaym ibn Qais. So this book is in English. This book is also in Urdu. It's in Arabic. The original language is obviously Arabic. And the book has been translated into Persian too. So this book has been translated into different languages. And I would highly recommend you all, just go on Google and type Sulaym ibn Qais English PDF. So you will get the PDF version of it. And I would sincerely request you all, if you can go through that book, and for our elders, they can go through the book and they can just write Israrul Imama, Israr-e Imamat, and they would have the Urdu version of it. This book is really fundamental and it's really important. Sulaym ibn Qais was who? He was the follower of Amir al-Mu'mineen. He penned a book and he mentioned all the events that took place from the deathbed of Prophet Muhammad all the way to Basra and all the way till the demise of Amir al-Mu'mineen. All the important events that took place. And he used to quote from whom? He used to quote from Buraida. Sometimes he would quote from Ibn Abbas. Sometimes he would quote from Salman, from Abu Dhar, from Mikdad, from different other personalities that actually witnessed those events during that time. So are we on the same page? That personality was called who? Sulaym ibn Qais. Now, what it has to do with our topic? The reason that we are mentioning that personality is that when he wrote down that book was so severe that the government of that time, they ordered for him to be arrested. So imagine the last part of his life. He was trying to conceal himself. He won't expose himself to the public. Why? Because there was a governmental order. And it was from whom? It was from Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi. Hajjaj ibn Yusuf is what? He has killed so many Muslims. Even all the historians, both Sunnis and Shias, they have a consensus over it about how many people he have killed, especially the Shias of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wassalam. Right? So at that moment, he used to conceal himself, and then finally, when he was about to die, he gave that book to whom? Aban bin Abi Ayyash. Aban bin Abi Ayyash, he gave that book to whom? To Ibrahim bin Amr al-Yamani. So likewise, this book came to us, and this is one of the most early sources that we have, which is still present till this day. Right? But how was that being treated by the governmental sources at that time? When I say governmental people, remember I'm talking about Bani Umayyah. I'm talking about whom? Banu Abbas. These were the people that were firm enemy against whom? Against Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. So at one point of time, there were few people that wanted to propagate the message of Islam by recording the history, by recording about the seerah of the Prophet. And then you have another group of people that had the governmental backing that were trying their best not to have this message disseminated. So this is, as we say in Urdu, this is a fakhr, right? This is a privilege for us. Why? Because the Shias from that time onwards till now, they are still leading the scholarly circles. They are still writing some huge books. One example that I want to quote here is of Allama Ja'far Murtada Amili. Right? He's one of the Lebanese scholars, right? He has written about Prophet. How many volumes? Guess what? 33 volumes only on the history of the Prophet. About the history of Amir al-Mu'mineen, 53 volumes. About the history of Imam Hassan, 12 volumes. About the history of Imam Hussein, 24 volumes. And the list goes on and on. Another scholar that I mentioned was whom? Baqir al-Qurashi. The reason I'm mentioning is that we have such huge scholars that till this date are writing down the history and are trying to preserve or whatever is left over till this date. Right? So this is one part of the people that have preserved the history of the Prophet. And then you have another group of people. Let me just give you 3-4 examples, and then you would come across that how the things were going at that time. Please recite as salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
The first example is Al-Qud and Umayyah, but from Bani Umayyah. Name is what? Abdul Malik ibn Marwan. Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, he was the son of Marwan ibn Hakam. So remember, Bani Umayyah, when did they get the power? They got the power when Muawiyah came into the government, right? Before that was Uthman ibn Affan, but Amir al-Mu'mineen came afterwards. And then from Muawiyah, then after Muawiyah was Yazid, from Yazid his son Muawiyah, and then afterwards Marwan ibn Hakam came into the government. Then his son Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, he ruled the whole Islamic government with iron fist. He asked one of his companions, like one of the discussion took place, and he asked that, oh, can you write about some history? About the days when Prophet used to do this and that, basically about the seerah of the Prophet. The scholar of that time said, okay, I'll write it down. And then he started writing the book. And when he finally was done with writing the book, he came to the caliph. And he said that, look, I have penned this book and this thing is mentioned. So when he went through that book, he said, why haven't you written any fadila? Why haven't you written about any virtue about Bani Umayyah? So obviously the reply of the scholar would be that Bani Umayyah didn't have any virtue at that time. They were against the Prophet. Even in Medina, Abu Sufyan used to lead the army against the Prophet. How would you expect me to write anything for them? Then what was the order from the government? The government said that we won't accept any book. We wouldn't accept any book that wouldn't have any virtue of us. And all the history of the Prophet that was being compiled in a book that was being done what? It was thrown into the fire. Thrown into the fire. Why? Because it didn't go through the governmental sources. So you would see how government was doing at that time. Second example. And this person is called what? Khalid bin Abdullah al-Qasri. Remember this name, Khalid bin Abdullah al-Qasri. He was one of the governor of whom? Bani Umayyah. He narrates an event. He said that he requested whom? Zuhri. Remember this name, Zuhri. Inshallah, we are going to talk more about this. He requested Zuhri at that time and he said, oh Zuhri, is it possible for you to combine and compile the seerah? He said, I will do that. But obviously, when I'm going through the seerah, there is a lot of mentioning about Amir al-Mu'mineen, the stuff he has done for the Islam. He said, if that's the case, you can only mention Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wasalam if you would throw him into the hellfire. Throw him to the hellfire, mention demerit things about him, mention the stuff that he has done wrong. Don't mention anything that has any positive impact about him. And if you would do that, then I would not accept that book. Imagine at that time, because remember, we didn't have the printing press or the PDFs that we have right now. Let me just give you a little bit background, because in those times, people would write it from their pen and the books would be not printed, they would be written down. Are we on the same page? So the books would be only really few in numbers, maybe 5 or maybe 10 or maybe 15, 20, 25, 30 copies maximum. They wouldn't have thousands of copies that you would see nowadays, or they wouldn't have PDFs at that time, right? They would just write it down. So imagine, person works so hard. Finally, he compiled the whole book. And what turned out? That book would be burned. Third example is of Zuhri again. And this is a funny example. Remember the ceasefire agreement Prophet had with the kuffar of that time? That ceasefire agreement is called what? Sulhul Hudaybiyah. Unfortunately, I don't have the time about that peace treaty that happened. Otherwise, I would have given some details. Suffice to say right now is that when that peace agreement took place, then Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wasalam had this virtue in the fadila that he was the one that was writing down that agreement. It was such a big fadila for Amir al-Mu'mineen. Then someone came to this person, Zuhri, again, and said that, oh Zuhri, who was the one that wrote down the agreement on the day of Hudaybiyah? So Zuhri replied that it was Ali ibn Abi Talib. وَلَوْ سَأَلْتَ عَنْهُ هَؤُلَاءِ قَالُوا عُثْمَانِ يعني Bani Umayyah. He said that if you ask Bani Umayyah about who wrote the agreement, they would say it was Uthman bin Affan that wrote that agreement. So you see, like all the history that we have gone through these sources. They were refined so much that whatever is left over, we cannot trust that 100%. Why? Because there is so many fabrications that would have taken place. That's why if there is a conflict that comes across between the ahadith that have not been quoted by Ahlul Bayt and the ahadith and the reports that we have from Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, who do we prefer? We prefer the reports from Ahlul Bayt. Why? Because they were the one that were compiling the religion. They were the one that were preserving the deen the way it worked. Fourth example, the fourth example is a really dangerous one. Let me just give you a brief background, right? So we have two versions of what happened, what led to the nuzul, or what led the nuzul of Surah An-Nur. Surah An-Nur, even the first ayah that I quoted was from Surah An-Nur. So what happened was that there was one of the wife of the Prophet that was being accused of something really wrong, right? And the people that did that, so there's two versions of history. One version of the history said that it was this wife of the Prophet. The Shia version of the history, or the things that have been mentioned in the Shia books, it says it wasn't that specific wife that is being mentioned by the people. It was actually Maria Qadufiyya, Salamullah alayha, the mother of Ibrahim, the son of the Prophet, who was accused of misdeed. Because she was being accused of misdeed, there were a lot of verses that were revealed just to clear her name. Right? That's the Shia version of the history, or that's the Shia, the version that we have got from Ahlul Bayt. But the version that our brothers have got from their books, it says that the daughter of the first caliph was being accused of wrongdoing. So one of the Banu Umayyah, one of the Umayyah, you know his name? His name was Walid bin Abdul Malik. Remember Abdul Malik ibn Marwan? His son Walid ibn Abdul Malik. He said that, oh Zuhri, again Zuhri came into the picture. I'm going to mention more about him. He said, oh Zuhri, wasn't it Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wasalam that accused the daughter of the first caliph about the wrongdoings? Imagine this thing. Who are they accusing? They're accusing Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wasalam of making a false claim against the wife of the Prophet, that she committed this and this act. So these people were responsible, these people that had special hatred. For whom? For Amir al-Mu'mineen, for Ahlul Bayt. They are the ones that have preserved the history. And now when you come into the actual traditions that we have into the books of Sirah, most of them came to us from three sources. Remember these three sources. One is from Zuhri, the other one is from his teacher. His name is Urwah bin Zubayr, and the third is the daughter of the first caliph, Aisha bint Abi Bakr. These are the three people. Let me give you a small, brief background of the people that have mentioned about the history of the Prophet. The first personality is what? Zuhri. You know, Zuhri used to be a special person, a special representative for the Umayyad government. He had a special hatred for whom? For Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. You know, on the face, he might just act in a way that he respects Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, but a lot of traditions, when you come across, it is actually from Zuhri that goes against the Isma, that even goes against the basic ethics when he's quoting about Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. You know the famous tradition that you come across about Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wasalam proposing the daughter of Abu Jahl? You know what? There's a famous hadith, Fatimatu wafa'atu minni, faman aghfabaha faqad aghfabani. That Fatima is part of me. Whoever angers her, it is as if he has angered me. Right? This hadith that we use, right? Now this hadith is used for what? For whatever happened after the death of the Prophet. But where did they use it? They said it was actually being said by Prophet when Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wasalam went against Sayyidah Fatima. And when you ask them that how did he went against Sayyidah Fatima, they would say that he was the one that proposed the daughter of Abu Jahl. Since he wanted to marry daughter of Abu Jahl, that's why Sayyidah Fatima got really angry, and that's why Prophet said this for Amir al-Mu'mineen, not for the first caliph. See how things have changed completely now? Go through the books of Bukhari, Muslim, and others. Who was the second person? Second person is Urwah bin Zubayr. Because I have to go a little bit quickly, otherwise we could have gone in a little bit more details about these personality. Second person is who? His name is Urwah bin Zubayr. Zubayr is who? Zubayr bin Awam, who was fighting against Amir al-Mu'mineen in the battle of Jamal, the battle of Camel that we talked about yesterday. He was the one that was fighting against him. He had few sons, right? One of them was Abdullah bin Zubair. Second was Urwah bin Zubair. And guess what? Who was Abdullah bin Zubair? What was the distinction that the progeny of Zubair had? When Abdullah bin Zubair came into the power, he didn't recite salawat for 40 Fridays on Prophet Muhammad. Salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.
40 Fridays, he would not even mention the name of the Holy Prophet. And what is the next thing he did? He assembled all the family of Banu Hashim and he had them thrown into the well, and he was about to put the fire into the well until the army of Mukhtar came in, and Mukhtar basically absolved those people that were into the well, and they were about to be killed. And who are those people? Ibn Abbas, Muhammad bin Hanfiya, and the people from Banu Hashim. They were being to be killed at that moment. Having it been not for Mukhtar ibn Abi Ubaidah Thaqafi, they would have been killed by that time. But Mukhtar sent an army, and obviously at that moment, they were being absolved right at the last moment. So this is the hatred that they had for whom? For Amirul Mu'mineen. This is the second personality. And obviously, third personality, we have already talked about her in our Majlis yesterday. Suffice to say one example that I want to go, and you go through the book, not mentioning the Shia source, go through Muslim Ahmad of Ahmad bin Hanbal, go through Sahih Bukhari of Muhammad bin Ismail al-Bukhari, and go through other books that have mentioned it, that when Prophet announced that there should be Amirul Mu'minin alayhi salatu wasalam leading the Salah, suddenly he heard a voice, and it was someone else than Amirul Mu'minin who was leading the prayers at that time. Then obviously Prophet was not satisfied with it. He went outside, even though he was so in pain. Even then he went outside, and one of his hand was into the arms of Fadl ibn Abbas, and the second was on the shoulders of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wassalam. And when he came in, he said, go away from leading the salah. At that moment, Aisha quoted this hadith, the last part of it, and she didn't mention the name of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Then Ibn Abbas said a famous line. He said, you know why didn't she mention the name of Amir al-Mu'mineen? So people ask why. Ibn Abbas said, because she never have good feelings for Amir al-Mu'mineen. She never think positively about Amir al-Mu'mineen. She have a special hatred for whom? For Amir al-Mu'mineen. And remember these words from Sahih Muslim, that what are those words? That Ya Ali, La yuhibbuka illa mu'min, that oh Ali, no one would love you but a mu'min, وَلَا يَبْغُضُكَ إِلَّا الْمُنَافِقِ, and no one would have any iota of hatred for you but a munafiq. So it's like 2 + 2, 4. We need to be really good with an objective when it comes to some historical personalities, that what are our views about them. So imagine 85 to 90% of the literature we have is from whom? Are from these people. And then the people that basically combine into the books, one of the name is what? Ibn Hisham. You know, one of the famous bookers from Ibn Ishaq, Muhammad bin Ishaq bin Yasar al-Madani. He is the one that wrote a huge book, roughly around 15 volumes he wrote about the Prophet's history. But when Ibn Hisham came in, he only tried to minimize the volume of the book, and he put it down into how many volumes? Only into 3 volumes. And then he mentioned in the preface of the book, into the introduction of the book, that I have left so much stuff. Why? Because it brings bad name to a lot of people. He didn't mention about the Fadr, the event of Fadr. He didn't mention about the way Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wasalam was being appointed Khalifa on the day of Da'wat al-Ashira. You know the famous hadith that says that whosoever would help me right now, he would be my brother, he would be my Khalifa, he would be my wasi, someone who would be executing my will. These famous lines, Tabari has mentioned it, Ibn Kamil, Ibn Athir and Al-Kamil has mentioned it, different other scholars have mentioned it, but when it came to Ibn Hisham, he didn't mention that. So this is the way we have got this history. And finally, a lot of bad things that you see in the history, inshallah, we would be discussing who are the people that benefited from those. Please recite salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So now it comes to, because every time people would fabricate a story or would try to distort the history, obviously there will be few people that would take benefit out of it. Are we on the same page? Why would someone try to play with the history, or why would someone want to play with the books of hadith? Obviously they would have some sort of profit or some sort of exterior motive that they would have if they would do so. Who are the people that benefited from it the most? We would be going through some of them. The first are the people that wanted to portray themselves as what? As Muslims. But within themselves, who were they? They had really special hatred for the message of Islam. One of the example is whom? Ibn Abi al-Awja. Ibn Abi al-Awja is a famous Zindiq. Who is Zindiq? Zindiq is someone who doesn't believe in Islam. But outside, he wants to portray himself as what? As a follower of Islam. And within inside, he wants to create doubts about Islam while working within the Muslim community. One of that personality was what? Ibn Abi al-Awja. Ibn Abi al-Awja is a famous person that has debated with Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam so many times. You know the famous debate about is God there or not? Does God exist or not? If you go through those debates, generally Imam is debating whom? Imam is debating Ibn Abi Awja. Ibn Abi Awja used to live with a guy named Hamad bin Salama. Now this Hamad bin Salama, just wanted to give you one or two examples that how the people that had hatred within them for the Islam, how they went against and how did they concocted so many things within the history of Islam, and they did what? They said Prophet used to do so. One of the 2-3 examples that I want to give. First example is of the Prophet when someone came to him. And this hadith is quoted by whom? By Hamad ibn Salama. Hamad ibn Salama was a close companion of whom? Ibn Abi al-Awja. So Hamad says that Prophet, there was a guy that came to the Prophet, and Prophet was being asked that, where is my father? Prophet replied that your father is in the hellfire. So he got really disappointed. He said, really? My father is in the hellfire? Then Prophet, in order to make him happy, he said, don't worry. Inna abaka wa abi finnar. It's not only your father who is in the hellfire, it's also my father who is in the hellfire. Go through Sahih Muslim, you will find this hadith. Inna abaka wa abi finnar. Not only your father, but also my father is in the hellfire too. That's why they have the belief, if you go through the books, that Abdul Muttalib was a kafir. Abdullah, who was the father of the Prophet, was kafir. Sayyidah Amina is also kafir. Then the second hadith mentioned, second hadith also says that Prophet says that my mother and your mother, both of them are in the hellfire. Now it talks about the mother of the Prophet. Again, same personality coming back and forth again. Third example. Third example is the famous one that we have already quoted, but I just want to re-mention that again. Remember the hadith that says that Ibn Abbas mentioned from the Prophet, that Prophet says, Ra'aytu Rabbi, that I saw my Lord. So they want to give Allah as a bodily figure, because you can only see something which has a body, right? Otherwise, if something doesn't have a body, you cannot look at that. Right? So it says, Ra'aytu Rabbi fi suratin shabin amrat. I saw my Lord. I saw my Allah How did you saw? How was his face? His face looked like a young boy. And he was wearing green cloth, and he was wearing gold sandals, slippers. So when Suyuti went through these hadith, right, he says it wasn't actually Hamad bin Salama, it was actually his close companions Ibn Abi Auja that added these hadiths into the books, into his books. So imagine how many hadiths he would have added. And I wouldn't be surprised if all those hadiths that talks about the kufr of Abu Talib alayhi salatu wassalam, that talks about the supposed kufr, as they say. Abu Talib was someone who gave sanctity, who preserved Prophet when everyone was against Prophet in the early days of Makkah. Who was the one that was saving Prophet at that time? It was the father of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wassalam, Abu Talib alayhi salatu wassalam, Rasul salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
So you wouldn't be surprised if you would come across the hadith. And like it's so amazing. They say that, like I even don't want to mention it from the minbar, but some of the stuff that they have mentioned about the uncle of the Prophet, the chacha of the Prophet, who has given his whole life, who used to ask Amirul Mu'mineen or sometimes Ja'far or sometimes his other sons to sleep on the bed of the Prophet because maybe enemy might come in and they would deem that the Prophet is sleeping and they want to kill him. So even if someone would be killed, it wouldn't be Prophet, it would be Ali, it would be Ja'far, or one of the son of Abu Talib would be killed, but not Prophet. He used to defend Prophet by sacrificing his own sons. But even then, the people have mentioned so many bad things about Abu Talib alayhi salatu wassalam. Why? Because this is the way. If they haven't even led, if they haven't even absolved Prophet's father and mother, then how would you expect for his uncle? Even if you go through the books that have been written, they have said there is a consensus among the early scholars that the father and the mother of the prophets were disbelievers. Disbelievers. Imagine Prophet coming from which line? From a non-believer, disbeliever's line. This is the way it was done. Second example. Second are the people that were in the government. They wanted to play with it. Let me give you a few examples, right? Imagine, and this is an example that we have to keep in our mind. They had political differences and they used to do so many bad actions that in order to justify their bad actions, they would say that the Prophet has done the same. What is the first example? The first example is of Hajjaj ibn Yusuf. Remember this name, Hajjaj ibn Yusuf, that we talked about? Hajjaj ibn Yusuf used to kill the people not normally, by just like, slashing, beheading them or doing something. He would actually cut the legs of the people, would cut the hands of the people, and would just leave them like this. Imagine the person would be killed in such a miserable state. This is the way, and he used to enjoy looking at those things. Where is the example that they have used? They have used a famous example of Hadithul Arineen. Hadithul Arineen, remember this name. Hadithul Arineen, Anas ibn Malik, the companion of the Prophet, he quoted this hadith. And he said that there were a group of people that accepted Islam. They had some problems, they were going through some of the problems, so Prophet advised them to drink the milk of camel. So they drank the milk of camel, they got fine, and after they got fine, they killed the person who was responsible for that camel, and they became disbelievers again. And then they ran away. Now after running away, this hadith is, by the way, in Bukhari, right? So everything that we're quoting are from the authentic source. When they ran away, Prophet sent an army to go and follow up, chase them. And once they were being taken away into the custody, they were brought back to the Prophet. And when they were brought back to the Prophet, you know what Prophet did? As per the hadith, it's such a thing that Prophet was sent as a mercy. Rahmatul lil alameen. How will you expect Prophet to do these kind of things? The hadith says that when they were being brought in, their legs were being chopped off, their hands were being chopped off. And after this, the iron rod, the iron stick that you see, it was put into the fire, and after putting that into the fire, it was put into their eyes. Was put into their eyes. And after that, listen to this. After that, they were being thrown into the desert. Once they were being thrown into the desert, they died. Why? Because of the thirst. And one of the person who died because of thirst, he used to, what he used to do because of thirst, he would take out his tongue and he would try to put it into the sand of desert, expecting some water there. This is the way Prophet killed that. And when Anas ibn Malik quoted this to Hajjaj, obviously this is a fabrication. This is a fabrication. Prophet never did that. When Anas ibn Malik quoted this, Hajjaj ibn Yusuf executed people in this way. Why? Because there was a fabricated tradition that was being quoted from the Prophet used to do so. So now if people would question, oh Hajjaj, why would you kill the people the way you killed? Hajjaj would have a good answer. Oh, I don't do this. I'm just following the Sunnah of the Prophet. I'm just following what the Prophet used to do so. Without even realizing the Prophet never did these kind of things. He was rahmatul lil alamin, a mercy for the mankind, not even for the mankind, but everyone in this galaxy. Every possible creature that we have living in this whole Milky Way, I would say. Prophet is a blessing for them. Prophet is who? A blessing for all of them. Can you expect Prophet to act like this? Of course not. Even if someone has to be killed, Prophet would never kill them like this. Prophet was so strict when it came to the rules of the war that he would even advise if someone you have killed from your enemy, then don't chop off their body parts. They call it muthala, right? Don't do that. Even if you kill a dog, don't play with the body of that dog, let alone like a human being. But what Prophet is doing there, not only executing, but executing in the worst possible way. And who used to benefit from it? The governmental people that used to execute the Shias of Amir al-Mu'mineen in the most brutal way. Second example, at that time, Bani Umayyah and Bani Abbas, they used to drink alcohol a lot. So what was the solution? They say, oh, if we drink it, so what's the huge deal about it? Prophet used to drink a lot too. Prophet used to drink alcohol. Imagine if you would see one of our brothers, may Allah don't, preserve ourselves from this bad deed. If you see anyone going to an alcohol shop and getting something, a wine or something, right? What would be your understanding of that person? Obviously, you would have a really negative perception about that. You would not have a positive view about that, let alone like the khulafa or the governmental people at that time. They used to do all kinds of bad deeds, and then they would associate those bad deeds to whom? To the Prophet, unfortunately. And the worst part is that, and this is something that's really difficult for me to mention, the worst part is that they would say the Prophet used to do wudu with alcohol. Wudu with alcohol. That's why even in Fiqh al-Hanfi, they say that you can do wudu with nabid. You don't need to have water. If you don't have water, what's the problem? Instead of tayammum, you can use alcohol to do your wudu. Why we have examples like these? Why? Because these people, they misunderstood, not even misunderstood, they deliberately associated wrong things with the Prophet, and once those things were being communicated to the masses, then all the bad things that they would do, they would have a justification of that bad thing. Please recite the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So we go through more and more examples and more things you would come across. One of the example is a funny example. The funny example was about a person that came and met with one of the Banu Abbas caliph, from one of the Abbasid caliph. So he saw that Abbasid caliph playing with whom? Playing with a pigeon. So when he saw that Abbasid caliph playing with a pigeon, At the same moment, he said, oh, I quoted from this and this guy. That guy quoted from the other guy. The other guy quoted from another guy. And he said this and this about playing with the pigeon, and it's a really good act that you're doing. At the same moment, in order to get some money, because if they would please the caliphs of the time, what would they get in return? They will get fame and they will get money in return. At the same moment, they concocted and they fabricated a hadith. So imagine how many things you would have seen. And one or two examples is of whom? These kind of people. One example is of whom? Samra bin Jundub. Remember the name Samra bin Jundub. Samra bin Jundub was a person who used to hate Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wassalam a lot. You know the famous ayah in Surah Al-Baqarah that was revealed for Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wassalam, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَشْرِي نَفْسَهُ ابْتَغَاءَ وَجْهِ اللَّهِ. You know, the famous ayah that says that within the people there are those that want to sell their personality, their whole being for what? For seeking Allah's pleasure. This ayah was revealed for Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wassalam when the Prophet was migrating from where? From Mecca to Medina. So he said this ayah was not revealed for Amir al-Mu'mineen, it was actually revealed for Abdul Rahman ibn Munjim who killed Amir al-Mu'mineen. He was the one that got the pleasure of Allah by killing Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wassalam. Another example we have from Abu Hurairah. Abu Hurairah, when he went to Kufa, he quoted a hadith that anyone that does or that innovates in Medina, Allah would send his la'an. Allah would withdraw his mercy from him. When he quoted this hadith, after that he said, and I bear witness that Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wassalam is the one that innovated in Medina. Since he was an innovator in Medina, so he is worthy of la'an from Allah. Imagine all of it. Why? Because they wanted to seek the pleasure of Muawiyah bin Abi Sufyan. Muawiyah that was saying la'an on Amir al-Mu'mineen on the pulpit. At that time, people wanted to have more closeness towards Muawiyah bin Abi Sufyan. And that's why they would make all of these fabrications. Why? In order to please Banu Umayyah and the government of that time. Please salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And the last example that we would use, and that would be something that is really connected to this present day. What is it about? I think you might have seen there was someone who was leading the prayers in the Haram of Makkah or maybe in Medina. So what happened was that he was leading the prayer, he said Allahu Akbar. As soon as he said Allahu Akbar, after a few minutes he went away. So people were waiting, and then he came back and he had his wudu again, and then he started the prayers from the place where he left. And after that the prayers were done, and someone asked, obviously there was, most likely there were question and answers, and someone asked, what happened just now? You have left the prayers in between and then you came back and then you started from the same place you left. In the Shia fiqh, if you got your wudu batil, or if your wudu is white while you're trying to pray or while you are praying, then you have to go and do your wudu again and then restart your prayers all over again. So he said, yeah, it's a really normal thing that I did. You know, I would quote an example which is more extreme. What happens that, what was that, and this hadith is, by the way, mentioned in the Sahih books of our brothers, Sahih Bukhari and Muslim, one of these books. He said, oh, that's not something that I have done out of blue. It is something the Prophet did too. And what Prophet did was that one day he came in and he was leading the prayers. And as soon as he was leading the prayers, he remembered something. He went back, he took a shower, and then he came back again and he started the prayers from the same place. Like, what do you say again? Honestly, sometimes you're lost for words. Prophet not even remembering to do a ghusl that was wajib upon him. there is some sanctity of this pulpit, of this minbar. We cannot go into those details. The wordings of the hadiths are really dangerous if you go through that. But why are so many things that have taken place, and there are so many things and lies that have been attributed to Prophet? The gist of it is that they wanted to please the rulers of the time. First, the rulers, they didn't allow the seerah of the Prophet to be compiled. And once they allowed, they had a strict supervision of the people that were writing the books. And even then, the people that were writing, they were trying to justify all the wrong actions that the government of those times were doing, and they were associating those things with to whom? To Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Risala salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali.
تو آپ لوگ اگر اس چیز کو مشاہدہ کریں کہ سیرت رسول میں کتنی زیادہ تحریف کی گئی تھی، ہر جگہ انہوں نے اپنے مطلب کی، یعنی کوئی ایک باب ایسا نہیں جس میں رسول اللہ کی توہین نہ کی گئی ہے، بلکہ یہاں تک کہا گیا کہ جب ملک الموت آتا ہے، صرف نبی، ہمارے پیارے نبی کے ساتھ ایسا نہیں کیا گیا، بلکہ کہا یہ گیا کہ جب ملک الموت جناب موسیٰ کی روح کو قبض کرنے آتا ہے تو جناب موسیٰ اس کو زور سے ایک تمانچہ رسید کر دیتا ہے جس سے اس کی آنکھیں پھوٹ جاتی ہیں. سوچیں، ملک الموت آ رہا ہے نبی خدا کی روح کو قبض کرنے، اور نبی خدا اس کو تمانچہ رسید کر رہا ہے جس سے اس کی آنکھ پھوٹ جاتی ہے. کبھی یہ کہا جاتا ہے کہ رسول اللہ بغیر خطا اور جرم کے لوگوں پر لعنت اور گالیاں دیا کرتے تھے. صحیح مسلم میں جائیے، روایت ہے، اور روایت بھی خلیفہ اول کی بیٹی سے ہے جو رسول کی بیوی تھی، کہ روایت میں کہا گیا، اور ابو ہریرہ سے بھی روایت ہے کہ روایت میں یہ کہا جا رہا ہے کہ دو شخص لڑتے ہوئے رسول اللہ کے پاس آئے اور ان کا کوئی قصور نہیں تھا، نہ انہوں نے کوئی جرم کیا تھا، بلکہ وہ رسول اللہ کے پاس تشریف لاتے ہیں اور رسول اللہ جب ان کو دیکھتے ہیں تو رسول اللہ دے دبا کے انہیں گالیاں دیتے ہیں. فَسَبُّهُمَا، رسول اللہ ان کو گالیاں دیتے ہیں. چنانچہ جب وہ گالیاں دے دیتے ہیں رسول، اس کے بعد ان کو احساس ہوتا ہے کہ ان سے خطا ہو گئی، تو کہتے ہیں کہ میں تم جیسا ایک انسانی ہوں اور میں بھی کبھی کبھی جوش جذبات میں آ کے گالیاں دے دیتا ہوں. چنانچہ اے اللہ، میری دعا ہے کہ میں اگر کسی پر لعنت کروں یا کسی کو گالی دوں اور وہ اس لعنت اور اس گالی کا مستحق نہ ہو تو خدا اس کے لیے اس کو رحمت کرا دے. اچھا، صحیح مسلم میں جب یہ روایت لائی جاتی ہے تو اس کے بعد ایک اور روایت کو بھی لایا جاتا ہے. ابن عباس سے روایت ہے کہ رسول اللہ جاتے ہیں اور رسول اللہ کہتے ہیں اے ابن عباس، معاویہ کو میرے پاس لے کر آؤ، مجھے کچھ لکھوانا ہے. ابن عباس ایک دفعہ جاتے ہیں، وہ کھانا کھا رہا ہوتا ہے. دوسری دفعہ جاتے ہیں حضرت ابن عباس، پھر سے کھانا. تیسری دفعہ پھر سے کھانا. تو اس وقت رسول اللہ کہتے ہیں کہ لا اشبع اللہ بطنا، اے خدایا اس کا پیٹ کبھی نہ بھر. بدعا ہے رسول کی. ابن کثیر کہتے ہیں کہ معاویہ کو جب یہ بدعا دی گئی تو معاویہ دن میں 7 مرتبہ کھانا کھایا کرتا تھا، پیٹ بھر کے کھانا کھایا کرتا تھا، لیکن اس کا پیٹ پھر بھی نہیں بھرا کرتا تھا. یعنی حالت یہ ہو گئی کہ جب جمعے کا خطبہ دیا جاتا ہے تو اس میں واجب ہے کہ جو بھی خطبہ دے رہا ہو وہ کھڑے ہو کر خطبہ دے. معاویہ کی کھا کھا کے ایسی حالت ہو گئی تھی، روایت کی جملہ، اور میں بار بار کہہ رہا ہوں، ذمہ داری سے عرض کر رہا ہوں، آپ دیگر کتب میں جائیے، ایسی حالت ہو گئی تھی کہ کھڑے ہونے کے بھی اس قابل نہ رہا تھا کھا کھا کر. اور اس وقت کہا گیا کہ یہ رسول اللہ نے جذبات میں آپ کے کچھ جملے ادا کر لیے تھے، بلکہ رسول اللہ جو ہے وہ دراصل انہوں نے اگر یہ کہہ بھی دیا تو یہ معاویہ کے اگینسٹ نہیں جاتی، یہ معاویہ کے خلاف نہیں جاتی سننے والوں، بلکہ یہ معاویہ کے حق میں جاتی ہے. کیوں؟ کیونکہ خدا اور رسول کے درمیان ایک عقد تھا، ایک ایگریمنٹ تھا، اور وہ ایگریمنٹ یہ تھا کہ اے خدایا اگر میں کسی غیر مستحق کو لعنت یا گالی دوں تو اس کے لیے وہ رحمت ثابت ہو. تو چونکہ معاویہ مستحق نہیں تھا اور رسول اللہ نے اس کو غلطی سے گالیاں دی اور لعنت کی، تو اس وجہ سے وہ معاویہ کے لیے فضیلت بن گئی. تو اب آپ ان روایات کو لے لیجئے جس میں ابو سفیان اور معاویہ اور عمر بن عاص اور مروان بن حکم، ان تمام پر رسول اللہ لعنت کرتے ہیں، تو اس کا جواب آپ کو کیا ملے گا کہ دیکھو تم لوگ نے سمجھا نہیں، دراصل وہ تمام کی تمام روایات تو ان کی فضیلت میں ہیں، اور پھر اس جھوٹی روایت کو پیش کیا جائے گا۔ تو آپ لوگ بتائیں ہم اپنا درد دل لے کر کہاں جائیں؟ کتنی توہین کی گئی ہے رسول اللہ کی ذات کی، اور پھر بھی کہا جاتا ہے کہ عزت رسول پر جان بھی قربان ہے۔ بھائی اگر عزت رسول پر آپ کی جان قربان ہے تو یہ جو کتاب امہات الکتب ہیں، جو بڑی بڑی کتابوں میں یہ روایات آئی ہیں، ان کے بارے میں آپ کیا فیصلہ کریں گے؟ ان کے بارے میں کیا کہا جائے گا؟ اور یہ واقعتاً کچھ چیزیں ممبر سے پڑھنے کے لائق نہیں، ورنہ بہت ساری مثالیں تھیں جس کو پیش کیا جا سکتا تھا۔ چنانچہ اس ہی سیرت نبوی کی حفاظت کے لیے امام حسین علیہ السلام قیام کرتے ہیں یزید بن معاویہ کے خلاف۔ جب تحریف اپنے عروج پر چلی جاتی ہے، اور جب تحریف سے واقعتاً دین کا نقشہ تبدیل ہو جاتا ہے کہ یزید تو شارب الخمر تھا، جو شراب پیا کرتا تھا، بندروں کے ساتھ کھیلا کرتا تھا، فسق و فجور میں اتنا آگے تھا، لیکن پھر بھی اپنے آپ کو خلیفۃ الرسول کہا کرتا تھا، تو اس وقت ضرورت محسوس ہوئی کہ امام حسین علیہ السلام قیام کریں۔ چنانچہ آپ قیام کرتے ہیں، اور قیام ہونے کے بعد شہادت رونما ہوتی ہے۔ لیکن کاش اگر مصیبت وہیں پر ختم ہو جاتی تو پھر بھی آسان تھا، لیکن ہائے عزاداروں، مصیبت صرف کربلا تک محدود نہیں رہی، بلکہ کربلا سے تجاوز کرتے ہوئے کوفہ جاتی ہے، اور کوفہ سے چلتے چلتے وہ شام تک جاتی ہے، اور پھر شام سے واپس کربلا، اور کربلا سے دوبارہ مدینہ۔ آ گئے ہم اپنی مصیبت کے حصے پر، اور اس جگہ پر آ چکے ہیں کہ آج مجھے یہ بتایا گیا ہے کہ اس ایام عزا کے موسم کی آخری مجلس ہے۔ اس کے بعد آپ لوگ 9 کو خوشیاں منائیں گے، لیکن آل محمد کے پرسا کے حوالے سے یہ آخری مجلس کی جا رہی ہے۔ تو آج کھل کے روئیے گا، آج اپنی آوازوں کو بلند کیجیے گا۔ کیوں؟ کیونکہ آج آپ امام حسین کو الوداع کہہ رہے ہیں، آج آپ جناب زینب کو الوداع کہہ رہے ہیں، آج آپ جناب ام کلثوم کو الوداع کہہ رہے ہیں، آج آپ اس چھوٹی بیٹی امام حسین کو الوداع کہہ رہی ہیں جو 4 سال کی عمر میں زندان میں ماری گئی۔ روایت کے جملے عجیب ہیں۔ روایت کے جملے یہ ہیں کہ جب وہ چھوٹی بچی خواب میں دیکھتی ہے تو خواب میں ایک دفعہ امام حسین کو ملاحظہ کرتی ہے، بابا کو دیکھتی ہے، ایک دفعہ جب بابا کو دیکھتی ہے تو اپنے گریہ پر کنٹرول نہیں کر پاتی، ایک دفعہ زور زور سے رونے لگتی ہے۔ بس جب گھر والے اس چیز کو ملاحظہ کرتے ہیں تو بہت کوشش کرتے ہیں کہ اے بیٹی خاموش ہو جاؤ، کیا تم جانتی نہیں کہ شرم نے کتنے تازیانوں سے حملہ کیا ہے، عبید اللہ بن زیاد نے کتنا ہمیں ستایا ہے، جانتی نہیں کہ یزید نے ہمیں پر کتنا ظلم کیا ہے، اور تم شاید یہ بھی نہیں جانتی کہ اب تو عباس بھی نہ رہے، اب تو علی اکبر بھی نہ رہے۔ زبان حال سے شاید اہل بیت کے گھر والوں نے جناب زینب اور امام زین العابدین نے بچی کو سمجھانا چاہا ہوگا، لیکن بچی اپنے گریہ کو نہیں روکتی بلکہ زور زور سے گریہ کر رہی ہوتی ہے۔ روایت کے جملے یہ ہیں کہ جب بچی اتنے زور سے گریہ کرتی ہے تو اور گھر والے جو موجود ہوتے ہیں خاندان نبوت کے، وہ بھی زور زور سے گریہ کرنے لگتے ہیں، شاید بولتے ہوں گے واہ حسینہ، شاید بولتے ہوں گے واہ حسینہ واہ غربتا۔ یزید کو آواز آتی ہے، یزید پوچھتا ہے یہ رونا اور گریہ کیوں ہو رہا ہے؟ بتایا جاتا ہے بچی اپنے باپ کو بہت زیادہ یاد کر رہی ہے۔ بس ایک دفعہ یزید ملعون امام حسین کا سر انوار زندان میں بھیج دیتا ہے۔ بس ایک دفعہ سر زندان شام میں آتا ہے، جناب امام حسین کی چھوٹی سی بیٹی اس سر کو اپنے ہاتھوں میں لے کے اپنے منہ کو اس منہ پہ لگا لیتی ہے اور کہتی ہے اے میرے بابا، اے میرے بابا، آپ کی داڑھی کو خون میں کس نے رنگین کیا؟ آپ کے سر کو کس نے کاٹا؟ آپ کی رگوں کو کس نے قطع کیا؟ اے میرے بابا، میں یتیم ہو گئی ہوں، میرا خیال کون رکھے گا آپ کے بعد؟ بچی اپنا گریہ کر رہی ہوتی ہے کہ ایک دفعہ اپنے چہرے کو، اپنے ہونٹوں کو بابا کے ہونٹوں میں اور چہرے پہ رکھ دیتی ہے۔ بس ایک دفعہ دل یہ کہتا ہے کہ امام زین العابدین تشریف لاتے ہوں گے، بیٹی کو دیکھا ہوگا، اپنی چھوٹی بہن کو ملاحظہ کیا ہوگا اور اس وقت کہا ہوگا انا للہ و انا الیہ راجعون۔ عزادارو، یہ وہی شام کا خربہ ہے، یہ وہی شام کے مصائب ہیں کہ ایک دفعہ امام زین العابدین کے پاس ایک شخص آتا ہے اور کہتا ہے مولا آپ پر سب سے زیادہ مصیبت کب پڑی؟ دل یہ کہتا ہوگا کہ کبھی عباس کے کٹے بازو کو یاد کیا ہوگا، بھائی علی اکبر کی برچھی یاد کی ہوگی، بابا کا کٹا سر یاد کیا ہوگا، کوفے کے مناظر کو ذہن میں گھمایا ہوگا، لیکن جملے یہ ہیں کہ کہا الشام الشام الشام، اے شام کے وہ مناظر، اے سننے والے، ہم پر ساتھ ایسی مصیبتیں نازل ہوئی کہ ہمیں کہیں اور اس مصیبت کا سامنا نہیں کرنا پڑا۔ واہ ویلا واہ ویلا۔ پوچھنے والے نے پوچھا مولا کیا کیا مصیبت آئی؟ تو امام نے کچھ مصیبتوں کا ذکر کیا اور کہنے لگے جانتے ہو کہ جب ہمیں لے جایا جا رہا ہوتا تھا تو تلواروں کو برہنہ کیا جاتا تھا، نیزوں کو نیزوں کی انی سے ہمیں مارا جاتا تھا، اور فقط یہی نہیں بلکہ امام حسین اور حضرت عباس کے سر کو زینب ام کلثوم کے آگے رکھا جاتا تھا، اور علی اکبر اور قاسم کے سروں کو جناب سکینہ، جناب فاطمہ بنت حسین کے آگے رکھا جاتا تھا، اور حالت یہ ہوتی تھی کہ ان سروں کی کبھی بید بھی کی جاتی تھی اور کبھی ان کو کچلا جاتا تھا۔ اور جانتے ہو ہم پہ کیا مصیبت نازل ہوئی؟ ہم پہ ایک ایسا وقت نازل ہوا کہ ہمیں غیر مسلموں کے علاقے سے لے جایا گیا اور کہا گیا کہ ان کے اجداد نے تمہارے اجداد کو مارا تھا، تو اب جو غیر مسلم تھا جس کے ہاتھ میں پتھر ہوتا وہ پتھر سے ہمیں مارتا، جس کے ہاتھ میں لکڑی ہوتی وہ لکڑی سے ہمیں مارتا، جس کے ہاتھ میں جو ہوتا اس سے ہمیں تکلیف دیا کرتا تھا۔ ہائے عزادارو، الوداع کہیے امام کو، الوداع یا حسین، الوداع یا امام۔ وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيُّ مُنقَلِبٍ يَنقَلِبُونَ إِلَيْهِ حُسَيْنٌ۔
یا 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 حسین 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 یا ماشاء اللہ
Hussein, Ya 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 Hussein.
جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا، جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا، جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا، جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا، ہر تماچے پہ سکینہ نے، ہر تماچے پہ سکینہ نے پکارا بابا، جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا، جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا، سارے جواب جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا، جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل آخری پرسہ ہے مارا بابا، مجھے بالوں سے پکڑ کر تماچے مارے، مجھے بالوں سے پکڑ کر تماچے مارے، میں نے سر شمر سے جانا جو تمہارا بابا، جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا، جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا، جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا، جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا، وہ جو دریا نے تحفے مجھے بخشے تھے، وہ جو دریا نے تحفے مجھے بخشے تھے، ان کو بے دردی سے ظالم نے اتارا بابا، جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا، جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا، سارے جواب جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا، جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا، جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا، ہر تماچے پہ سکینہ نے، ہر تماچے پہ سکینہ نے پکارا بابا، جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا، جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا، جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا، جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا، آپ کے سینے پہ آنا پھر سے سونے والی، آپ کے سینے پہ آنا پھر سے سونے والی، سو کے اب خاک پہ کرتی ہے گزارا بابا، جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا، جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا، جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل
قاتل نے ہمارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہمارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہمارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہمارا بابا موقع نیزہ پہ اسے دیکھوں تو دیکھوں کیسے موقع نیزہ پہ اسے دیکھوں تو دیکھوں کیسے ہے میرا اصغر تھا مجھے کہاں سے بھی پیارا بابا مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہمارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہمارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل ماشاءاللہ میں آخری پرسا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہمارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہمارا بابا ہر تماچے پہ سکینہ نے ہر تماچے پہ سکینہ نے پکارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہمارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہمارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہمارا بابا ساتھ والوں کے دوڑایا گیا ہے مجھ کو ساتھ والوں کے دوڑایا گیا ہے مجھ کو دور زخموں سے بدن میرا ہے سارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہمارا 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 بن جائے وہ کہیں ایک کے حالات میری بن جائے وہ کہیں ایک کے حالات میری ہر میں چھپا لیتی ہوں سجا سے چلا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہمارا 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 بابا ہر تماچے پہ سکینہ نے ہر تماچے پہ سکینہ نے پکارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہمارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہمارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہمارا بابا میری غربت پہ چچا جان کا سر روتا ہے میری غربت پہ چچا جان کا سر روتا ہے ان کی غربت میں کروں کیسے گوارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہے مارا بابا ہر کفن آپ ہوئے تھے اپنے کی بیٹی بے کفن آپ ہوئے تھے کفن رہے کی بیٹی ایک جیسا ہی مقدر ہے ہمارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہمارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہمارا بابا آخری مصرع مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہمارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہمارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہمارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہمارا بابا مجھے بالوں سے پکڑ کر ہے تماچے مارے مجھے بالوں سے پکڑ کر ہے تماچے مارے میں نے سر سے مارا جو تمہارا بابا مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہمارا بابا مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے ہمارا بابا الوداع ہے الوداع یا شہید کربلا الوداع یا شہید کربلا الوداع ہے 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 الوداع یا شہید کربلا یا حسین 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 اللہم صلی
صلی اللہ علیہ یا رسول اللہ السلام علیکم یا خاتم النبیین السلام علیکم یا رحمت للعالمین السلام علیکم یا امیر المؤمنین یا علی ابن ابی طالب السلام علیکم یا سیدت نساء العالمین یا فاطمة بنت محمد السلام علی الحسن والحسین السلام علیکم یا ابا عبداللہ وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليك مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقينا وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام على أئمة الهدى علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي. السلام عليك يا مولانا يا صاحب العصر والزمان. الأمان 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 من فتنة الزمان. عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم صل على محمد ومحمد. اللهم كن لولي الكمال حجة ابن الحسن صلاتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا